Hey yo, what you lot saying? It's the boy here. And today we're going to be talking about MK12 and the potential future of the storyline and where it's going to go to. So essentially my thoughts and views. So as we know, the MK12 trailer did drop like a few days ago, which was pretty hype, not gonna lie, and it was sick. And yeah, it pretty much confirmed Liu Kang's ending to be canon, so yeah, despite how powerful Shang Tsung was back in MK11 Aftermath, Liu Kang smoked him, which pretty much makes Liu Kang one of the most, if not one of the most OP characters in the MK universe. But yeah, there's been some stuff that has been like recently like viewed by the rest of the team, and yeah, it essentially has pretty much caused a lot of speculation when it comes to the story and how it's gonna go down. So as if you remember from Liu Kang's ending, which is now the canon one, they essentially posted like going back to the Great Kung Lao era. So if you know who the Great Kung Lao is, he's basically the first person to essentially cause like the essential defeat of Outworld. Yeah, and that basically caused Outworld to like stop their winning streak from, I believe it was like 9 tournaments. I'm not sure, but yeah, and he was essentially the first, but he was essentially one of the Overrunners who was able to defeat Shang Tsung. Not other Overrunners can essentially do that. And yeah, Shang Tsung got salty and, you know, Goro fucked him up. So yeah, pretty much Shang and Goro would pretty much be an important characters to this. I see some people saying that Shang Tsung doesn't deserve to have like any form of or in MK1. That's what they're calling in the game now. But here's the thing: Shang is literally one of the most important aspects of the Great Kung Lao era. Without Shang, you basically do not have much. So obviously he's gonna come through, to the roster spots in MK1. I do question, yeah. Like, I have lots of questions on why not Katana or even the, to be honest with you, in this reboot. But yeah, I want to get into them a bit later. So this information that basically killed. It was a matter of fact that Johnny Cage essentially was confirmed as one of the roster spots. So mainly with the Great Kung Lao era, yeah, we mainly talk about like ancient characters, yeah, like like really old characters, like for example ancestors, like Nightwolf's ancestors, Johnny Cage's ancestors, Kenshi's ancestors, and all of these ancestor characters essentially playing a part of the story, right? But in this case, it doesn't seem to be the case of us following the Great Kung Lao era, which causes like lots of speculation. Because here's the thing, yeah, NRS has essentially been doing story modes based upon, or rosters based on how the story mode plays out. So whoever plays like a role, whether it's major or minor role into like the base story, yeah, they're basically coming into the roster. Yeah. So you wouldn't really expect to find Johnny Cage within the role of the Great Kung Lao era. But however, if they are continuing this trend, then from what it looks like, I don't think it's gonna have that much focus on the Great Kung Lao era. There's two things that I could potentially think of what's gonna happen. For NRS basically to a completely different way of how to do their rosters. So fan favourites who essentially do not fit into the Great Kung Lao era at all. Yeah. Ones that basically are dead, ones that basically have special circumstances, do not play a role into the story, or do not fit the time frame at all, which is pretty much some of the fan favourites that we know and that MK fans love. So that being Sindor, Katana, Melina, basically most of the mainland Indians, Johnny Cage, Sonya, Jax, Cyrax, Sector, Kenshi, apparently the Kaseki and Takeda are pretty much favourites, which is pretty weird considering the fact that majority of the comeback is still essentially hated. But yeah. Also other fan favourites such as Noob Cybot as well. And yeah. So they did tease that other people were essentially going to be coming into the roster through like other characters essentially. So this could well be essentially the same roster you could pretty much expect it to be. So where am I going at with this? What I'm thinking that might happen, this is just a random assumption, so don't take it with a grain of salt, is that is going to be a story mode in the Great Cool era. It's going to be focusing on that only. However, some characters will not be in the story. So some characters in the base roster, such as Johnny Cage, yeah, or Jax, Sonya, Sector, Cyrax, they may not be in the story, considering the fact that the time frame they are in is completely different. And the thing is, with time travel, NRS fans do not really like it at all. So, any form of justification of time travel through them, why certain characters here, is probably going to cause some problems, and NRS is probably trying to avoid that. There doesn't seem to be like any form of use of time travel, to be honest. So it seems like Liu Kang has pretty much created a new era, and that's it. End of time travel for that game, essentially. So that might be likely that NOS may be trying to stop trying time travel, but who knows? Maybe they might use time travel in the future. But yeah, that could be one of the solutions. Essentially, doing the story in the Great Kung Lao era and basically handpicking from the base roster who fits the story and who gets. And then some characters may be excluded out of the story based on those circumstances. And if it does include time travel, yeah, they're most likely trying to avoid that just to make sure they don't get flack from NRS fans in terms of how shit the story is. Because if you remember MK1, that story was absolute dog shit, including Aftermath. And not many people like that, mainly due to the consistency when it came to Chronica and how her entire plan when it comes to time travel works. So yeah, I guess I'll probably try to avoid that. Another thing that might happen, this might be most likely, to be honest, I'm not gonna lie, from what I've seen, because the thing is, I really like to focus on the MK1 to MK3 portion of the roster. And yeah, that seems to basically mainly attract the customers the most instead of MK4, 3D era. It's mainly MK1 to 3 that basically attracts most of the essentially the casual fan base of Mortal Kombat. So what I'm getting at with the second point is that we are essentially going back to, for example, the MK1 region, the original MK1 region. So where Liu Kang, Sonya, Johnny Cage, all these basically go out to essentially save from and Liu Kang defeat Shang Tsung, right? So from at that point. However, when it comes to that point, I would take it they probably are going to do something like really massive. So I don't think it's going to be like a tournament per se, but I think like another enemy could come out and could disrupt the entire tournament structure, and then maybe the more combatant could be gone for like essentially this game, and then they have to like fully focus on something else, like something like Onaga. Because here's the thing, Onaga's the only boss that I haven't done yet, so it would make sense to bring back Onaga. Another thing to essentially take away, and another thoughts that I did have was that Liu Kang, despite being a god now, he actually doesn't use Raiden's powers. So I think they're also addressing the fact that, not many people would maybe like Raiden with the fact that he's a normal human in terms of gameplay, because here's the thing, Raiden is the first person that literally uses electricity, lightning, thunder in all of his gameplay. Yeah, people are going to mention Rain, Nightwolf, but they only use it to a minimal extent. Nightwolf only really uses lightning in the form of projectiles in MK11 anyway, and he basically has like a literal death beam attack, which essentially replaces some of his lightning attacks back in MK9. So in saying that, these two characters that were mentioned, Rain and Nightwolf, they don't really use that much lightning attacks. But it would be a massive shame to see if Raiden basically is playable without the lightning powers. Because honestly, if you are planning to put someone like Sonya, Jax, although Jax is a bit of a different case since he has metal arms, yeah. In terms of like any form of difference with the metal arms, he still fights like a regular human. Let's be real. I mean, the only difference he has is essentially like what he had in MK1, the heat missiles. Essentially, it would be nice if they did something more with his arms to make him more unique. But yeah, if he's potentially confirmed, I hope it's because there may be more of a chance of basically 4 human fighters like playing as like regular humans, and Raiden could be one of them. And if he is, it would honestly be a shame. But from what it looks like, that why you got Liu Kang essentially doesn't have the thunder powers. So I'm hoping Raiden does have his powers back. Essentially, like later on into the story, maybe. Some people are theorizing that Liu Kang may be a villain at the end. Here's the thing, yeah, they're not gonna carry it out that route again. Like, here's the thing, yeah. You can still be a hero while being ruthless. Like, I'm pretty sure some people understand that, but it seems like with the MK fanbase, like, they're thinking, oh, he's gonna go dark Raiden type shit, and that's honestly insane to think about. Like, why would Liu Kang go into the route when he just literally rewrote and basically reboot the universe in a more peaceful way? Like, he would essentially do like Red Hood behavior, but he wouldn't go that far into the villainous route. That's more dark Raiden, and they did give more of explanation as to why Raiden went dark. I mean, that was back in MK11 or MKX. Original timeline wise, the first timeline he was contributed to on August influence, but yeah. In saying that, there was now in regards to Menino and Katana, which is also another massive talking point within the story. Yeah, they seem like they're working together, but here's the thing: Liu Kang did mention that there is like former rivalries when when the camera would literally face to Menino. So you got to consider the fact that Menino could still be doing the same evil stuff that she was essentially doing back in the original games, the Rust games in the second timeline, and could be potentially doing that. So if I was to do like a best guess for like the storyline, maybe this could be like some form of redemption arc from not sure though, but yeah, that's probably something to think about. But I'm not sure what role they're gonna play in the Great Kung Lao era. If the first option that I did mention, like basically Great Kung Lao era, yeah, and some characters get dropped from the base roster in terms of story, yeah, but some characters are playable in the story. What role are they gonna play? Because here's the thing, yeah, I don't think Great Kung Lao ever mentioned any of their denions at all. Like I mentioned this in my previous videos in regards to of and how it's gonna like rest on rosters wise, but how are you gonna do Renina and Katana? And because they're not exactly that major players for the Great Kung Lao era, so could be like a minor role to be honest, like spectator. That's probably what they want to be, and then I think the main focus for them is just what they're going to be on gameplay wise. But in terms of that, I also heard like some people saying that it's Itinio. I'm not sure how people got those assumptions to be honest, but it could might as well be Outworld. Well, here's the thing, yeah. Mainly when it came to Outworld back in the original games, I think lots of people should. It was mainly like a purple atmosphere, very dark, like very evil atmosphere. It's not like your usual daily sunsets like in Earth, and then they showed, and then there was some pictures of it on how it looked like. Mainly, it was meant to represent like Garden of Eden and stuff, but yeah, essentially the atmosphere for like no, Earthrealm and how didn't know it was way different to Outworld back in the previous games, the Midway games. Now in the Neverrealm era, they're basically Outworld as if it's essentially a medieval time Earthrealm, but it was just with fucking aliens and shit. Like that's literally what it is. Yeah, and mainly it doesn't have that form of atmosphere of what it was used to in the previous games. So I'm not sure if it is actually Eternial or not. Maybe they might try and resort to Outward being the purple atmosphere and it having more of a different form in terms of how it actually looks like in terms of the environment. But yeah, I think it's probably safe to say that it is probably Outward because here's the thing: people say that Onaga isn't raised because Liu Kang doesn't know Onaga yet. But does Liu Kang even know how to unmerge a realm, despite how powerful he is? Like the only time he actually did unmerge realm was in Battle of the Realms, but that's a non-canon series. So you've got to take into consideration is Edina even unmerged with Another big talking point is Shang Tsung. He comes up and bodies everyone. Thing is, apparently people are saying both endings are canon. I hardly doubt that to be the case because if they were to do both endings as canon, they would do like two story modes, like at the very least, and then based on what you do with the story, yeah, then they would have to do like for two like story modes. MK11 took like 3 hours to do in in terms of cutscenes alone. So imagine what MK12 is gonna be like for the base roster. I have a feeling that it won't actually be two story modes because here's the thing, it will take way too much money for anyone to do. Even though they have the funds for it, they might use the funds for essentially better purpose, such as the gameplay. And yeah, for story wise, I don't think Shang Tsung's ending is canon. It could be the fact that Shang Tsung is hiding and then maybe trying to kill everyone just to make sure that he can try and kill Liu Kang. So basically, he managed to like come back mainly due to some bullshit in terms of the fact that he's apparently a remaining constant. Me personally, I think that's bullshit, considering the fact that Liu Kang is literally busted as hell. He could easily erase Liu Kang. I mean, he could easily erase Shang Tsung if he really wanted to, like before he even becomes a main threat. So honestly, a bit bullshit, but I don't think it's the Shang Tsung from Aftermath where he because Liu Kang literally erased Shang Tsung in his ending. So and Liu Kang's ending is canon, so it could might as well be a Shang Tsung that basically is pretty much working on the Shao Kahn, but he's trying to portray him through other ways. So it would be interesting to see how he does that, but I'm not. I don't think he is the main villain. So yeah, and yeah, last talking point is pretty much Kung Lao. So Great Kung Lao, like I said before, he was given tons of focus. However, the thing is, Luke, if you noticed Kung Lao's like costume, it's essentially the same as Old Man Kung Lao as the MKX version. So are they actually gonna put more focus on the modern Kung Lao that we know in the new timeline, or are they actually gonna go focus on the Great Kung Lao? Because the modern Kung Lao, he has a metal hat and he actually has powers with spirits, tornadoes, and the spirit could well be the Great Kung Lao. However, the straw hat is there, so that could be a massive indicator that that was the Great Kung Lao, and Liu Kang is trained. Another honorable mention that I would like to say is that people say that Raiden has been born anew, in a sense, like Raiden's been born, being essentially created as a mortal in this new timeline. They have no knowledge. Here's the thing: Raiden, mortal Raiden, yeah, human Raiden, he was essentially there with Liu Kang at the end of time in MK11, and he was also there discussing the plans of Aftermath and how it's gonna go down. So this could well be the mortal Raiden that Liu Kang brought into this new timeline in order to make sure that they can have full on guidance and essentially monitor the timeline to see if it's going like haywire or if it's going perfectly as intended. But yeah, that could be an interesting point of discussion if Mortal Raiden is also essentially one of the characters that we know from the second timeline now that actually made it into the new timeline with all the knowledge of the previous MK law. But yeah, that is, like I said before, it is an interesting point. Liu Kang or Liu Kang and Mortal Raiden being the only ones that actually know of the previous lines, but other characters don't. And Mortal Raiden essentially laying low. Perhaps they could, perhaps Raiden could have been a god, like in this timeline, but somehow he got his powers taken. So, and he's trying to lay low, because he doesn't want to cause like any form of suspicion. But that's pretty much everything I wanted to discuss. So yeah, what do you think will happen in the story? Who do you think will play a massive role when it comes to, you know, the entire Great Criminal era, or it could be, from MK1, MK9 onward in the story, and who's going to be the main villain? I'd like to know your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments. And yeah, if you could give a like, subscribe, that would be much appreciated. Take care.